I would now like to welcome members from the audience for a question and answer period. People who would like to ask a question for Professor Baker, if you could please line up behind this microphone. People with questions for Mr. Kokel, if you could please line up behind this microphone. Each speaker will be given an opportunity to answer every question, regardless of whether it's addressed to them. However, the speaker the question is addressed to will be provided 2 minutes to answer, whereas his opponent will be provided 1 minute to answer. I suppose. I would also like to ask the questions be to the point, short, and germane to the debate. Thank you. We can start on this side.
Okay. Thanks. I really appreciate John's participation in the debate. I love the way he's been doing this for years, off and on, and I just totally appreciate John Baker's willingness to present a view that, while it differs from my own, I just love the fact that he is willing to come out and do these things.
Yes, I appreciate that as well.
Yeah, one thing though, I sort of differed with you.
Okay.
Was that, although John didn't debate you on this, if the problem of evil came out, that the person who wants to say there's, say, an inconsistency between the existence of evil and the existence of God has to presuppose the existence of evil. They don't. They just has to presuppose that you presuppose it, because all they have to do is show that you believe an inconsistent set of propositions. And if you look at the better defenses against problem of evil, they don't go at it your way. If you look at Alvin Plantinga or someone like that, and his fights or disagreements with real philosophers like John Mackey, who John Baker mentioned, or Lewis,
I'm sorry.
The point is, okay, the question is, why on earth would you think that someone like Baker, if he did wish to push the problem of evil against the existence of God, would have to himself presuppose the existence of objective evil? All he has to presuppose is that you presuppose it and have an inconsistent position. And for what it's worth, I'm a biblical inerrantist, so I'm at least as conservative as you. I guarantee you that.
I understand the question now, and it's a sophisticated question. I appreciate it. It is not necessarily incoherent or inconsistent to raise the problem of evil against the existence of God if you do it very carefully. If the way you raise the problem is that I'm making no commitments at all to the issue of evil in the world, but you believe that there is evil in the world, and in your system you believe that God is good and powerful, this then sets up an internal contradiction that you and your worldview have to solve. That would be a very careful, sophisticated way of raising the question that does not put the person who's raising the question in a bind. That is not the way it's usually raised, though. The way it's usually raised, and this is what I was speaking to, is that it's usually raised this way. There is evil in the world. Here are examples of it, and how can you therefore then believe in a God that would allow such a thing? Now, this isn't the place to resolve that particular question. I am just simply making the point that anyone who feels it in their gut to raise the objection based on what they view as evil, is affirming the existence of objective morality, which is the only thing that could make the challenge coherent to begin with. In order for there to be an objection, there has to be evil. But what is the evil? The evil is some violation of objective good. And if the evil in question there is not a violation of objective good, then I don't know what the objection is. So you're right, there is a way to put the question that avoids the difficulty that I pointed out, but that doesn't touch my point. My point is people have a gut level response to the existence of evil in the world, and this shows that they also clearly see objective responsibilities that were violated. Thank
you. The problem for evil isn't just from the existence of evil acts by human beings. The classic form of the problem of evil occurs after the earthquake in Lisbon, when hundreds of thousands of people were killed in the 16th century. And the let such pointless deaths and misery happen, not deaths caused by people. But that's a different discussion.
Okay, well, the question's for the professor. Professor, when you were talking, it at times reminded me of reading a Webster's dictionary. Maybe because I'm immigrant and, well, big vocabulary. But the question is this: do you recall, Professor, you were talking about torture when the person is causing pain to another person? It's not good because it's painful. Do you recall that?
I don't think I said. I think what I said was that what's wrong with torture is that it causes pain.
And because it's painful.
Yeah.
Sir, if I would use anesthetic, would I be able to torture you or kill you perhaps? Would that change your point of view? Because to me it was very confusing.
If you give a person an anesthetic and then try to torture them by causing you pain, this is sort of subterfuge behavior. So I take it that you don't mean that. I'm not quite sure what you do mean.
Well, I can explain it very plainly. But I mean that...
Sorry. What I said was that if I give a person that I'm about to torture an anesthetic, and torture involves the use of pain, physical pain, then this seems to me a rather silly kind of way in trying to torture someone. It's a bit self-defeating. So I didn't understand the question.
Well, I can explain it very plainly.
Sorry.
What if I would do it
Sorry,
essentially...
if we could just keep it short and one question per person. I'm sorry if we just have to move along.
Now, I'd like to respond just briefly to this. I think there is a point here to be made, though, that the consistent reference to the idea that we shouldn't be causing pain, which I agree, not unjustified pain, and the kind of attitude that, well, isn't this just simply obvious, is precisely my point. It is obvious that we shouldn't be doing that. And the reason it is obvious is because it's wrong to do so. Now, if it's not wrong to do so, I don't know why we shouldn't do it. It strikes me as quite simple.
Well, yeah, I mean, speaking of wrong, I think we can all agree murder is wrong, evil, never should be done, right? Every single culture I've heard of has a prohibition on murder. I mean, everybody knows the Ten Commandments, right? Thou shalt not kill. It's been the moral code for a millennia or two. What most people don't know, though, is that the Ten Commandments only applied to Jewish people. If you were a non-Jew, a Goya, you were free to murder or kill everyone.
I'm sorry, if you could move to the question.
I'm getting there. The point is, every culture, while they've banned murder, have allowed it. I mean, if this is such an objective, wrong moral, why do we allow it?
Yeah, thank you for amending your question, since our discussion here is not about the Old Testament or the Ten Commandments. Every culture has a prohibition against murder. What murder is unjustified killing. That is, everybody understands that taking a human life is the kind of thing that requires a significant justification. And that's the moral principle there. Taking a human life isn't the same as stepping on a bug. You don't need to account for that. You can just do it if you want in most cultures, okay? But all cultures see human life as falling under a special moral rule. Now, the difference in each culture turns out to be what counts as justification for taking that human life. Some cultures say there is never any justification even for a serious criminal, unless you're being attacked personally. Then you can take that life. That would be a justification. Some cultures do capital punishment, some don't. So there are variations on what is considered justifiable in taking the human life. But all cultures seem to view human life as the kind of thing that requires justification.